Hi, and welcome to Tea with Titty T. I am Titty T, and this is where we talk all things relationships. My guests today are Ashwyn Mberi, an actor, presenter, MC, poet, and voiceover artist, and all-around creative. And it is, of course, a huge pleasure to have him join us today. Plus, Nelao Nengola is back. She's an international self-love and lifestyle coach, and she works with people to heal their relationships and helps them find the love they truly desire. So welcome to you both, and thank you so much for joining me here on the second episode of Tea with Titty T.
Sounds good to be here. Feels good to be here, actually.
Great to have you. You guys are doing good on this lovely day.
Yeah, now feeling all right. Yeah.
So we're talking relationships, we're talking all the nitty-gritty things that has to do with relationships. Nelao, last time you were here, you said that you don't really deal with a lot of men, but when you do deal with men, do you deal with them differently compared to your female clients?
Well, like I said, I don't generally work with men, but men have been really curious about, like, okay, you're doing this self-love approach to relationships, so can I get into this? With the men, I find that, because men aren't generally familiar with being in touch with their emotions, so it's different, but it's not. It's different because it's new to them. But it doesn't feel different for me.
Ashwyn, for you, as a man, are you like comfortable and like okay and willing to openly speak about your relationships?
I mean, obviously it depends, but first and foremost, I'm a performance artist, so naturally, especially with the poetry, I get used to expressing my emotions and kind of like, you know, sorting through them and understanding them in an intricate way, so to speak. But yeah, I don't know. I would say, to be very honest, I'm more comfortable talking about my emotions on stage than anywhere else, you know. So there's a bit of both, I think.
Yeah. And would you also say your friends are also like that, open about speaking about their relationships?
I would say so. Not all my male friends are, but the women in my life certainly are. My male friends, I would find that my queer male friends are much more comfortable talking about their emotions, which actually gives me the courage to speak about mine. But without the gentlemen, a little prodding is necessary.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
And when they do open up, do they open up like man to man? Do you guys like talk man to man, or is it more like a macho, yeah, I'm that guy type of
There's a lot of unspoken conversations between men, you know. Sometimes your friend invites you for a beer and he just drinks the beer in silence, and you know you've done your part. But of course it depends on the situation, and as time has progressed, I find more men are comfortable talking about what they're going through. What ends up being the issue is, you know, how honestly we talk about it, because there's also this whole thing of, like you said, this macho, this ego thing, this masculinity situation, where we might not necessarily be straightforward or as forthcoming as we should be, which ultimately impacts how we end up processing it.
Nelao, do you think it's an African man thing? You know, why African men don't open up? You know, they have to be the head of the house. They have to be strong. They can't show emotions. Do you think it's an African man thing, or is it generally just a man thing?
I think it's generally a man thing. But I do think African men especially have not been as encouraged to discover that emotional side of themselves. Just culturally, I think unfortunately, it's just something that we aren't doing yet.
Yeah. And what do you think can be done to encourage men to be more open about it? Because there's nothing wrong with, you know, crying, Ashwyn, you know, if your girl did something wrong, for example, and you're emotional about it, you know, and just shedding a couple of tears. There's nothing wrong, you know, about that. Would you say that you are open about your emotions with your partner? Are you?
Yeah, with my partner, yes. Otherwise, what's the point, really? You know what I mean? I've got friends in spaces and places where I have very strict boundaries, but with my partner, it's an intimate relationship, and the idea is we're getting to know each other. So if I'm showing up, I think it's important that I show up fully, so she also knows who she's dealing with. And if you're going to be in a relationship long term, these things are going to come up. It's better to know, you know, to set up the kind of instruments that allow you to express yourself freely, and, you know, to have the kind of relationship where someone is receptive to that, because you can't always expect to be in control for the rest of your life, especially if that's what you're hoping for. So rather just approach it as honestly as possible. But it's difficult. It is difficult, particularly, I mean, I was watching some TikToks the other day, as we all certainly. This guy was talking about scientifically women look at men as less than if they see them cry. This is like a scientific thing. And so then there's that whole fear, like, you know, will I still be seen as, you know, a man,
As a man,
so
yeah.
so to speak. But I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry if I need to cry.
Very healthy.
Yeah, it is very healthy because, you know, what better way? Because I always say a good cry will always make you feel better afterwards. You
Yes.
know. But have you always been open about relationships? Actually, apart now from, you know, talking about it on the stage when you perform, but outside and off the stage, are you usually open, or have you only now decided to be open about your relationship?
I mean, I was open about my relationships, but I don't know if I had the healthy tools, if I had exercised the healthy tools. I won't act like I didn't know them. If I had exercised the healthy tools, which allow the way I was open about them to be congruent with how, you know, the relationship itself was going. So in this public sphere, and, you know, it's really public for everybody, there's a lot of performance, you know, that goes out, and there's a lot of projecting this like perfect image, and things aren't always perfect, and people certainly are not always perfect. So I was always careful about what I'm open about, and even till today, for the privacy of, for example, my partner. I'm in the public sphere, she's not, and I'm much more comfortable dealing with 1,000 tweets or whatever than she is dealing with 4 or 3 tweets. So it's about navigating that space, and also knowing, you know, agreeing as a couple, how do we show up in public as well. But I'm open. I'm generally open, mainly because we're talking about men, and I've got a very strong affinity for black boys, and trying to figure out how best we can approach our mental health. And if they see a black boy comfortable being vulnerable, I feel like that might be just a step closer to, you know, to some kind of healing. Yeah,
I agree. Nelao, in your opinion, what do you think men generally want? And is it the same? Is it the same things that women want?
I think at the core of it, we all want to love and be loved. I don't think that is different for men. But I do think that men, like, this is just a really good time for men to start addressing those, their emotional needs in a relationship.
Yeah.
You know, you asked me, what do men want? And I don't think that's the question that I really can answer. I'm not a man, I don't know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But from speaking with men, I do find that a lot of men don't even themselves know what they want. And I think as a starting point, like, they need to ask themselves, like, what do I actually
I feel the same
Pivot
way.
to Ashwyn. Ashwyn, can you tell us, because obviously men are different,
Yes,
right?
yes.
But would you say, in your own words, what are some of the key things that men want in a relationship?
I mean, first, like she said, you know, it's about, first of all, knowing what you want, because you make different decisions when you're healed than when you're not healed. So first of all, figure out the healing so you know truly what you want. But in general, everyone wants to feel safe, supported, and they want to feel like they're not doing this life thing alone. Everything else, you know, comes down to preference and the whole consortium of words. But ultimately, everybody wants to feel safe, secure, valued, appreciated. And I don't think I've named anything which wouldn't apply across the board.
Across the board, I
But
agree,
ultimately, I do think it's important to first, you know, heal, take the time to get to know yourself so you know what you truly want. I mean, I remember turning 30 and then realizing I wanted nothing like what I had wanted for the last, you know, decade, which like blew my mind. I didn't expect that, but you know, that's how life works sometimes.
Do you think this is that Ashwyn is typical of most men in what he wants out of relationships?
I think that was a really honest answer, and I love that it would be true for men and women. I love that you took the time to actually heal and get to know what you actually want. I find that sometimes also in healing and actually discovering what you desire, men are not honest about what they actually desire. Like you said, it's different when you're, you know, 20, and when you make the shift to 30, your desires are going to change.
Yes.
And being so aware of what they are is what helps prevent all these things that I'm sure we're going to talk about later, like, you know, cheating or, you know, not being happy or fulfilled in your relationship. That starts with knowing what you want.
Would you say it's easy? Because for me, this question, the answer for me would be no. But in your own opinion, Ashwyn, would you say it's easy to start a relationship today?
It's easy if you're inclined to make decisions from a place of instant gratification. If you're inclined to make decisions because someone looks good and you just had vibes and just had energy, yes. But if you're ticking the boxes, if you're really looking at this is what I want and this is what's healthy, it could be difficult, but at the same time, there's synchronicity. You know, you can never count out the fact that you can meet the person who's at the place that you are, or at least going where you're going, because, you know, healing is a continuous process. But, you know, sometimes it's just about figuring out, you know, if someone is involved in that process. So it differs. Like I said, it's easy if you're not ticking all the boxes, in my opinion.
And again, it boils down to self-love. You know, if you want to be in a meaningful relationship, you need to first, you know, learn to love yourself before you can love somebody else. And I think that's probably, in my opinion, the basis why it's so hard to be in a meaningful relationship nowadays, is because we want to be loved by that person, and they should give us all the love that we need and deserve in that moment. So yeah, I mean, so it definitely is not easy, but it's also not difficult.
Yes.
I would like to say. Nelao, research shows that people believe it's harder to date these days than it was 10 years ago. Would you agree with that statement?
Oh, that's a hard one. I know that it is harder. I think it's easier if you know what you want. I think it can also be easy to really think that it's not easy, or think that you're having fun, or that, oh, it's so easy. It's easy to meet people now.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of distractions, which is why I always take people back to, okay, let's start with yourself and actually what you want. Because I think if you're dating with intentionality, it is easier than when you're not.
Do you agree with that, Ash?
Yes, I do agree. And of course, look, everything in this world we're living in, this particular generation, is accessible at the speed of light. You know, I was having a conversation with my friend the other time, and she had sent a particular piece of information, and she found, you know, some contradicting information, and I was like, you know, back in the day, that could have taken 100 years. You know what I mean? But it was just a couple of clicks for you to figure that out. And so part of that ties into it. You know, everybody sees everybody, and everybody's interested in a lot of things. And I've always, like you said, intentionality. I've always felt like relationships is someone making a decision to say, I want to build something with this person. And sometimes you might need to put on some blinkers, you know. You can't allow yourself to see everything, be aware of your weaknesses, because that's also growth. As human beings, we've gone further when we've been in control of our impulses. Every single thing we've created, every time we've progressed as human beings, we've gone further. So that's also part of it. It's like, you know, are you ready to control your impulses in order to go further in one relationship?
Wow, that is so true. Do you enjoy dating, Ashwyn? Like, is it easy? Is it an easy process to date?
Not particularly, I wouldn't.
Why is that?
Or to like, as in like getting to date one person, or
like
we're
just
talking about
the process
of finding someone to date.
The process of courting, the process of going on dates, the process of pampering, the process of, you know, that process of dating.
Yeah, I mean, it's different with different people. Sometimes it's difficult because you could be forthcoming and someone is not used to processing their emotions that way. I know I've got a very short distance between what I feel and what I express, and I've had years and years of practicing how to express myself that clearly. So it can be very difficult. And then there's people who just can't deal with the spotlight. And it's like an unfortunate thing, because you almost feel like, you know, I sometimes feel like maybe I'm pretentious, you know, but it's part of who I am. There's going to be a spotlight at some point in time. And some people are just like, I'd rather not deal with all of that, regardless of the connection. So it can be difficult. It of course, some people might have malicious intent, and then there's the whole idea of you triggering each other. You know, you show each other parts that need healing.
Yes.
And that's really where it gets really complicated. It gets really tricky.
Yeah.
So, and you know, I was reading somewhere that we're always trying to recreate our childhoods. You know what I mean? And sometimes we want to recreate what was comfortable in our childhood. Now, what was comfortable is not always was right. What was comfortable is what was repeated. And sometimes you were comfortable with someone shouting at you. And so when you're in a relationship, you start feeling insecure, you feel uncomfortable because this person just talks to you, you know, calmly. And this is why healing is necessary, because then you might end up triggering them to try and get that response that allows you to feel comfortable, you know, where you're both shouting, which is not necessarily healthy. So yeah, it's interesting. Let's
continue talking about dating. And this next question is to you, Nelao. the traditional sense of dating, you know, picking the girl up or whatever the case might be, asking her out on a date, because I feel like it doesn't really happen a lot these days anymore. You know, guys are like, let me come to my place, let me cook for you. No, no. So let's talk about that in the sense that what would you say is the correct way to court a woman, in your opinion? Like, what should a man really, if you're really interested in a woman, if you really want her, like to date her, to be with her, what do you think should be the right steps for a man to take in order to sweep this girl off her feet?
Ooh, okay. Again, you know that I always say it depends. Because my right way might not be his right way. So again, being really clear on who you are and what you desire and what you would see as this is right and respectful and enjoyable and exciting, first for yourself. I don't know if it's traditional anymore. I think it's definitely switched, like the whole like what Netflix and chill and all of that. It boils down to, because people are going to do what they're going to do, you have to know what you want for you. Like, if you are not into Netflix and chill, like, you need to be able to express that and say, okay, my respectful, desired way of being courted is I want you to take me out on a date, or this is what I want. And you have to express that, because maybe his way is different than yours, but he's not going to know how to court you if you can't express that for yourself.
And relay it to him. Okay, so people like different things, preferences, basically.
Yeah, there are women who like Netflix and chill.
I'm past Netflix and chill, girl. Like, I want to be taken on dates. Like, come pick me up in my house and take me to a date. That's where I'm at right now, but that's just me. Nelao, how do you know if a guy is serious about you? Like, are there ways to tell if a man really is into you?
I think we make men out to be like super complicated, but I think men are quite simple.
Would you agree with that statement, Ashwyn? Would you say y'all are simple?
I want to hear her follow up.
Okay, good. Let's get to that follow up.
I think that men will tell you where they are. They'll tell you. We're talking about relationships now. He'll tell you if he's serious about you. He'll tell you if he's ready. But sometimes women are amazing at hearing what they want to hear. If he says, you know, I'm just playing the field right now, why is that so why do we complicate that instead of just say, okay?
But that's the thing, Nelao. That's where I'm gonna have to like disagree, because men aren't always honest about that. You get what I mean? If let's say we come together, me and a guy, and we're talking about, okay, fine, well, like, what do you want? He will never tell me I just want to smash. He'll never say that. You get what I mean? Because I feel like men, they want to play the long game. Like, let me get her comfortable. Let me get her to like me. I get what I want, and then from there, it's done.
Exactly.
Ashwyn, honesty, especially when it comes to something like that. If you're a man and you're not looking to settle down with this person, why is it so hard for men to be honest about what they want?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's a character issue, obviously. And can't say I've been perfect in that instance either. I think there's also this idea of ticking boxes. You know what I mean? This is the thing that women expect, and so you don't get a chance with her if you don't tick these particular boxes. And of course, if someone is manipulative or etc., they know your boxes, they're going to just tick the boxes until everything falls in place for them. And of course, that's wrong. You know what I mean? It's always good to communicate with people, but we're talking about men who haven't healed. They're not honest with themselves. What are the chances of them being honest with you? And this is why I come back to that conversation of instant gratification. You will learn a lot from someone by making them wait. You will learn a lot because if he's just playing a game, okay, fine, then play it to the very end. You know what I mean? To the very end, and make sure you really tick all those boxes, and you'll find generally people who aren't truly, whose intentions aren't good, will fall off. But this I mean, I found this also happens both ways. I mean, if men are afraid to talk, to say they straight up want sex, women are 10 times. Now the only reason I'm saying that is because based on the social constructs, women generally wouldn't feel, they would want to say that, you know what I mean? And then it gets murky, and it comes down to a character issue. How honest is someone with themselves? How well have they gotten to know themselves, and how freely do they communicate honestly. And because, look, everybody is healing in different ways.
Yes.
And you
At
can,
their own pace as well.
At their own pace, you know, the best you can do is look out for yourself.
Yeah.
And not a single human being on this planet Earth has always made perfect decisions. And we don't expect perfection from people, but we do expect decency. And to be honest is a decent thing to do, and that's difficult.
You're in a relationship at the moment,
Yes,
right?
I am. Yes, I am.
And tell me, like, what was the first thing about her that attracted you to her?
Her drive for herself, her life, what she wants to build for herself, very, very big for me. And the fact that I wasn't an intimidating voice for her. I speak very boldly, and everything I'm sure of, I speak like I'm sure of. Everything I'm not sure of, I'm loudly wrong about. And she's a lawyer, so you know, with regards to communicating and talking, she was always forthcoming. And yeah, I think it was mainly that. And she's just a person who walks into any room and instantly brings light, and has, you know, one of those infectious smiles which make any day kind of feel better. And so that was, yeah. So I mean, so that was it. But of course, it took a while. It took a lot of mistakes. It took a lot of bad decisions. I don't always like to say mistakes. Sometimes we just make bad decisions, knowing better. And it took also time being confident in myself to do the right thing. You know, if you haven't always been perfect, and you get to a place where you have a chance to do things right, you can be very scared to the point of self-sabotaging. You know what I mean? So it took a lot of courage for me to be like, okay, you know what, you can actually see this through. And being the kind of person she is, we naturally gravitated towards each other.
Beautiful. And for you now, you're also in a relationship. I'm the only single person on this table at this stage of the game. But okay.
Stage of the game.
Now you're also in a relationship. Talk to me about the beginning stages of your relationship with your person, and how that started out. What was the thing about him that drew you in, and that made you want to actually consider being with him?
I think you know, we're talking about men and whether or not, you know, they're complicated. At the time that I met my partner, I had very much been dating intentionally. I was tired. But I realized that, okay, if I'm going to change my dating situation, this is going to be up to me. And so I think with him, it was just, he was also extremely intentional, very clear, very like secure and communicative about what he desired as well.
What he wanted, yeah.
Yeah, and that was just a great alignment. So I really found like safety and security in that.
I'm gonna need to take a couple of pages out of y'all's books for when it comes to these type of things. Let's talk about the L word, real quick. I love you, love. Do men fall in love more quickly than women? Now, would you say? Would you say that men fall in love quicker than women?
Honestly, again, like, I'm not a man. I don't know. Maybe Ashwyn, you can answer that better than I can.
I would like to say no, though. I would like to say no. I think we get the butterflies first.
The butterflies.
Yeah.
Well, if you really are truly into her and your intentions are set on her, it would be easy to
say
relatively to fall in love, to say I love you. To say I love you is a whole different ballgame.
But falling in
between
love,
feeling
it's
it
easy.
and saying it is a bit of a distance, because you know, men can be generally quite afraid as well. You know what I mean? So it's an interesting one, because also there's that situation, and I keep bringing back instant gratification, because it depends on what you consider love to be. And for some people, love is, I met you and I fell in love with you, you know what I mean? And this is the thing. For other people, it's taking time. Considering the divorce rates in Namibia, it seems like there's more of the former than the latter. And it's just, I think it helps to take time, but in that taking time, if a man loves you, he'll tell you. He'll tell you. It's a difficult vulnerability to keep to yourself, but you also want to make sure that, you know, love is a verb. It is a doing word. So you want to make sure that love
Actions.
is followed by actions, because
actions speak
words
louder.
can be thrown around.
Very much true.
Yes, they can be. So, you know, at the very least, allow someone's conduct to match their words before taking their word for it. Yeah.
Is it important for men to also feel like they're in love, Ashwyn?
Yes.
Like you want to feel like you also have the butterflies and
Oh
the
yeah,
whole,
yeah. Nah, it's really cool. Like, even if you're just on your phone and you're smiling and you notice you're smiling because you're texting her. It's if you're a person who's bent on that, who wants to have a committed relationship, yeah, it feels good because, you know, love is a beautiful thing. It really, it opens us up to different worlds, and it opens us up to parts of ourselves we previously would not have seen. And so I think men want to be loved. Going about getting that love and understanding the kind of love they want is very different, which is why I feel like earlier when we were talking, love languages, you know, is also a key thing, even when it comes to courting.
Very true.
And I don't think a lot of men know their love languages, because we do a lot of, we borrow a lot of values from each other, which explains a lot about how far we've come. So also it helps to not have that click mentality, and then allow yourself to just kind of, you know, fall back, discover this is what I want, and once you're in it, just be in it. I've met men who fell in love once, and it's
game over.
25 years in, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Have you said I love you to your person yet? Have you guys done the outward thing
Yes,
yet? Yeah?
yes, yeah.
Beautiful. For you, Nelao?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, guys. All right, so do you guys also get butterflies? Like when you like a girl, you're like, oh my gosh, she's so beautiful.
I will
Do you
write
also
poetry.
get like, oh,
This is beyond butterflies.
Yeah.
It's a whole garden. You know what I mean? And yeah, I'm driven also by having a muse. You know, I write a lot of my poetry based on the person that I've opened my heart to the most, and because your human beings are universes and galaxies in just themselves. You know, which is why it pays to have, you know, focus on one person, because you see the world differently. Yeah.
yeah. How do you know if a woman is falling in love? Can you tell? Is there a way to tell if a woman is in love?
Yeah.
Is there a way to tell?
Yes, I mean, there's consistency. Girls aren't, they're not going to keep talking to a guy they don't like. They're not going to. If she's giving you a chance to take her on a date, that means a lot. And there's things which we don't, let's say she wants to take a walk at night. That's not a safe thing for women to do ever. You know what I mean? So you're being trusted and all of these things. So there are ways that women will tell you. There's ways they'll ask you. But of course, it comes down to that individual person and how they've been taught to communicate, and how easily, you know, they would open up. But in general, you realize that if she's entertaining you, like if she's there, and it's important to have a conversation. And I think that's something I learned whilst trying to date, to say, okay, are we building towards friendship, or are we trying to see if something else is possible? Having that conversation at the start really helps, you know, 'cause that way you understand that this person continuing this, she knows this is where I'm trying to take it. So yeah, I mean, there's ways of knowing, and then sometimes you just never know. If she decides she does not want you to know that she's in love with you, you'll never know.
Can you tell if a man is in love? Nelao?
Yeah, and ironically, I think it's really similar.
Yeah.
One is consistency, follow through, like the person actually does what they say they're going to do. They show up when they say they are. They are intentional about like making you feel secure in the relationship. They tell you, okay, this is where we're going. Again, just intentionality, I think, is really big. And also, he's not afraid to show that side of him that men are typically sometimes afraid to show. Like he's more, you know, vulnerable. He's affectionate. He's, you know, open about what, you know, his feelings, desires, and all of that. I think as a combination, I would say those things.
Is it important to be friends first when it comes to like really having a meaningful, long-lasting relationship? Is that process of being friends first a must, or is it something they can just generally contribute to the relationship blossoming into something beautiful if you are friends before the fact?
I have never been confused about what I want someone to be in my life. I'm one of those people who decided these are my friends. So if I'm approaching you, I am not trying to be your friend. You know what I mean? So, I mean, as I've heard people talk about how it's a beautiful thing, you graduate in that way and you get to know each other. For me, I prefer it well-defined from the beginning. Yeah.
And for you, Nelao?
Me too. Like, don't approach me on like some friend stuff, but you know you want more. And also, I respect it more when you're clear about what, as a man, like what you desire. You're not trying to play games. You're not trying to make me feel safe, and then like you're gonna switch up later. Like, be clear. I really value clarity.
So I'm clearly been hanging around with the wrong type of men. That's clear. That's it for this episode of Tea with Titty T. We'll be back with part 3, where we will talk more to Nelao and Ashwyn about relationships and talk about things in the bedroom.